Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome to another edition of On the Mark for today, Wednesday, the 2nd day of November 2022. And indeed, we are just another month there, about, well, call it 2 months before the year is done. I think we have moved at a pretty rapid pace through 2022, in spite of all of the challenges, in spite of all of the adversities, and in spite of all that we have encountered throughout this year. We're still here to give God thanks and praise that we are alive and well. And indeed, I will go further and say, in spite of all of the challenges, we continue to do well here on the island of Nevis. At least we are a tough set of people here on the island, and we know how to negotiate tough circumstances and challenging circumstances, and that is why we have all been here to speak this way, in terms of saying that we have survived. And indeed, Nevis continues to move along, and in terms of what we have been able to do and accomplish, I will say that we have done so despite of the challenges and in spite of the difficulties. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here this evening. I'm filling in for the Honorable Mark Brantley. He is the architect of this show, and of course he's not here this evening. He's off island and is due back tomorrow. So I want to say good evening to him, or good night to him if he's listening wherever he is. Indeed, we are always privileged to come here and fill in for him once he's not here. From time to time, you'll hear the Honorable Charlie Libert, and of course the Honorable Eric Evelyn will come from time to time as well. I have not been here for some time. As a matter of fact, I believe the last time I came was the three of us were here, the three candidates and eventual winners of the last election held on the 5th of August, that is the federal elections. And I came then to offer my thanks and congratulate my colleagues as well publicly, but that was the last time. Prior to that, though, in terms of coming here by myself, it has been some time, but it's always good to come and be in your company. This evening we're here for 2 hours. Of course, this show is one without any commercial breaks, and that is a good thing, in that it gives us a chance to speak, it gives us a chance to dialogue, it gives you a chance as the callers to call in and make your contribution to the show. As we say from the get-go, is that we always seek to have the best behaviors being displayed here on Von Radio, which of course the tagline here is that this is the Caribbean's only powerhouse, and of course if you're emitting from the Caribbean's only powerhouse, then you want the best to be said and the most respectable things to be emitted from these airwaves, or over these airwaves. So this evening we will want to welcome your call a bit later in the show, and indeed we just want you to be respectful of yourself, respectful of the host, and of course respectful of the station, and respectful, most importantly, of the listening and viewing public. This evening we're starting off with birthday greetings. I believe I heard this morning, I wasn't able to catch up with Omel Wilkin, but Omel, my understanding is today is your birthday. I miss coming by you, but I have your wine, so I'll bring you a bottle of wine for you, and perhaps we'll pop it and have a drink when I bring it. But if not, then you can enjoy it yourself and savor the moment. But they normally say if your birthday is on the 1st of November or 2nd of November or any day in November, it goes all the way down to the end of the month. My birthday is in November as well, later on this month, and when it comes I'll celebrate until the end of the month once God spares my life. But Omel, today is your day, and everyone else who is or who are celebrating today, I express congratulations to you for surviving and living to see another year, and I want you to ask God's blessings to see many more years to come. Those who are in the bereaved column, I don't have any information in front of me in that regard, but I want to express sympathies to you and all who are grieving at this point in time. I want to say to you that, in everything, you still have to give God thanks, because there are certainties in life, and one of them is death. It must come at some point. And indeed, once it comes, it is always a difficult situation to face, but when it's all said and done, it is all a part of the cycle of being born, and then you live your life, and of course you will have to depart this earth someday. But I want to express sympathies in that regard, and of course we continue to support all those who are in the bereaved column, of course. Ladies and gentlemen, over the weekend we traveled up to New York to meet, greet, and bring our report card, so to speak, to the people of New York, to our supporters there, or nationals, because we were speaking to people who support this particular government, persons who want to know what the government is doing, and some who don't support the government, but that is okay. We were speaking to Nivisions when it's all said and done, and it was an excellent meeting. I certainly believe that we did present ourselves well to the public there, or the Nivisions who came. And indeed, I want to thank everyone who braved the chilly weather. Well, for me it was chilly, but I suppose to some it's the norm. But I want to thank everyone who came, whether you came from Ohio, whether you came from Connecticut, or you came from upstate New York, or whether you came from south of New York, wherever you came from. If you came from New Jersey, wherever you came from, we were thankful to have you in the audience, and we were thankful for the interaction. I want to say thanks to all who would have arranged the events there, meaning the hall and the refreshments. I probably should start calling names, but I want to thank persons like Dion Pemberton, who would have done some work to spearhead the effort there. And I start calling names, but I know I'm going to get in trouble. But all who would have contributed, Doc Gishard and all of the guys there in New York, who perennially lend their efforts and support to our effort when we come there. And I want to thank you. Indeed, a weekend prior, we would have gone down to the U.S. and British Virgin Islands, St. Thomas, Tortola, St. Croix. We had some excellent meetings down there as well. And all of our nationals down there who came out, I believe the Premier would have thanked everyone last week. But personally, I also want to thank everyone for coming out. And we were pleased to come and report to you. Indeed, it is something that we do from time to time. Some may think we do it around election time, but I recall in 2019 we did something similar where we went up to New York and down into the Virgin Islands, but we didn't have an election in 2019. I believe it was somewhere in 2020, June of 2020. So prior to that, we would have gone out because we felt it was important to go out and report to our people, and we did so. So thanks to everyone, and indeed everyone who we interacted with, except a few, felt that Nevis is heading in the right direction in terms of our development, in terms of our programs and plans moving into the future. And I want our Nevisians to continue to stay abreast of what is happening on the island, because when it's all said and done, you were born here, as they say, your navel string was buried here, and every time something is said about your island, whether you've been out of here for a year, 10 years or more, every time something is said, it is something that affects you, whether positively or negatively. Most times, though, there are more positives coming out of Nevis than negatives. And I want to say thank you to everyone who continue to work day in and day out, every single day, to make sure this island continue to progress and this island continue to be the gem of the Caribbean, because many have come and many keep coming. Because why? Nevis is a much sought after place, and we welcome one and all, and we also encourage our nationals or persons who were born here to continue to be involved in your island's development, and make sure that when it's all said and done, all of us can leave Nevis better than we met it. And that is the mantra coming from myself and from this great party, the Concerned Citizens Movement. So all in all, we had some good trips to the Virgin Islands, British and US, and also up to New York. Unfortunately, we were unable to get across to Canada, of course. Normally, when we get to North America, it would normally be a good trip to hop across to Canada. Most times we go to Toronto. This time around, we were unable to. And indeed, as you get later down into the year, it becomes a bit more difficult because you have so many things to deal with. You have budget preparation, you have budget presentation, and indeed you're heading into the festive season, so it is really crunch time. So it was difficult to fit that in at this time. We're hoping though, and I don't want to be presumptuous to say we'll be down in St. Martin. We're working on getting down there as well. The people of St. Martin, the nationals of St. Kitts and Nevis, but more so Nevis, who are in St. Martin, have been calling and asking when we are coming. We're working on that, and we would like to come down to engage the people of St. Martin as well, both French and Dutch St. Martin, and we're working on that, and of course we'll let you know accordingly what our plans are for your neck of the woods, meaning St. Martin. We normally would get there, and we would want to get there, and we would want to bring the message to you. We are bringing a message of hope, because while some continue to say nothing is happening in Nevis and Nevis is dead and all kind of negatives, I want to say to the NRP, for example, who continue to spew such language and such thoughts, that persons came here during the last election, and I'll say this because they keep saying they brought in no one. They keep saying they didn't bring anyone and they didn't have any resources and all kind of things. But I would say to them, listen, I know persons came in here who were brought in by the NRP, and I know persons who were brought in by the NRP came and they were of the thinking or under the illusion that things were bad in Nevis. And when they came and they saw what is happening on Nevis and the progress that have taken place in Nevis, they changed their vote right away. They changed their votes and they went and voted for CCM. So perhaps the NRP, because they lost those votes, because of the lies that have been spewed out there about nothing happening in Nevis and about things are so bad in Nevis, people came and their conscience spoke for itself. They came and voted for the CCM because they saw what was happening and they believed when they saw. Seeing is believing, they say, you know. So once you come and you see, you must believe. And believe me when I tell you, Nevis is on the right path. And of course, going into the next 5 years, we're making a commitment to the people of Nevis that this concerned citizens movement will bring tremendous progress to the island of Nevis. I'll speak about those things later on, but we will see a transformation in the infrastructure, and we'll create jobs, and we'll do what is necessary to put Nevis back where it once was. We were shaken by COVID, but prior to COVID, we were dealt a hand in 2013, which we were certainly alarmed when we got into government. We're not a government of our party of excuses, but the reality is what it is. When we got into government in 2013, we understood what we were going to meet, and we saw what we met. And it was a situation where things were difficult at that point in time. We had challenges from Bastia in terms of the party in power there, and the Prime Minister who was in power at the federal level. We had those difficulties. So we were fighting a party which was in power in St. Kitts, and also the same thing we were doing with the NRP party, because they were in collusion and collusion and also coalition with the party, the Labour Party, who was in Bastia at that point in time. So we were fighting all of those. We had the difficulties of finances then, but we also know, and we also can admit that we left things in 2006 in a healthy situation. The NRP would not want us to go back there, but sometimes you have to open up a book, start telling your story, but keep in mind, you cannot start a story from the middle of the book and tell the entire story. It has to start from the first page and go to the last page. And so, in spite of the challenges, we're not a party of excuses. We're not a party that bend buckle about to pressures. We're not a party that is going to put ourselves in front of the people of Nevis and say we can't. We always believe that we can get things done, and we have gotten things done, and we can also say to the Nevisian public that we have always sought to put the people of Nevis first, not just in words but in our actions, and our action speaks for itself. But those challenges that we met in 2013 we were able to maneuver through those challenges, and of course we were hit in 2020 with the COVID-19 pandemic, but we have not used those as excuses, because we have seen tremendous results coming out of this administration, even through the difficult times. And through the difficult times, I will say to you that as ministers of government, we've always stood with the people of Nevis. 2013, I can recall that we would have taken a 10% pay cut in 2013. I didn't know what my salary was going to be then, but that was one of the commitment we made even before we got into government. We said we'll take a 10% pay cut, and that lasted for, I believe, 3 years. If one knows what a minister of government makes, you would understand what 10% is, and you would understand what we would have had to forego. But I'm not complaining. As I said, we are not a party that complains, but we are a party that say what we mean and mean what we say. And that is what we would have done. Even during COVID-19, we would have taken an additional pay cut as well, to stand in solidarity with the people of Nevis. So we have done that, and we continue to stand with the people of Nevis. And we want to be as positive as we are, or we can be, as a people and as a party, so that that positive spirit can rub off on the people of Nevis, so that we can understand that we are in this together and we'll keep building this island together. So ladies and gentlemen, of course, yes, you're listening to On the Mark, and we'll look at a few things now, because when it's all said and done, we are hearing on the streets, it seems as though some persons have determined that election is next month, or the month after, or the month after. As a matter of fact, let me say that we have until March of 2023 to call an election. We had our previous elections in 2017, December of 2017, and by way of the Constitution, you can dissolve Parliament and call an election 90 days later. So indeed, we have until March of 2023. But be that as it may, it can be any day. As a matter of fact, I said to anyone, whether you're in opposition or in government, you have to be prepared. Just as the Scout motto says, you have to be prepared for an election at any time. If I were to go back to what transpired with the federal government, we had an election in 2020. I think it was June, yes, June of 2020, and by August of 2022 we had an election at the federal level. But circumstances would have dictated what happened there. So I say all that to say this: when it comes to elections, whether you're in government or in opposition, you just have to be prepared. And I'm certain when I say that we are prepared as a party. I don't know when the Premier will call that date, but of course he's the one who has that constitutional mandate to call a date. So whenever he does that, we will all be ready. Go to the polls in St. James, St. Thomas, St. Paul's, St. John's, St. George's. 5 seats will be contested here on the island of Nevis. Currently the CCM is the party that holds 4 of those seats in St. James, St. Paul's, St. John's and St. George's. And of course, come the next election, we are seeking to hold that seat in St. Thomas Parish as well too. So there are 5 seats on the island, and we will go all out to ensure that we can hold all 5, so that we can bring progress to every constituency on the island. I know sometimes people say that once you're elected to government, you are to serve the entire island. That is true. As the Minister of Agriculture, I serve the entire island. I interact with farmers in all of the different parishes, and I also interact with homeowners in every parish. I also interact with persons when it comes to land issues throughout the island of Nevis. I also interact in terms of disaster management and everything that falls under my portfolio. But the important thing is that I am the elected representative of St. James, and when it comes to St. James, I sit at the table, the cabinet table, or that big table in cabinet, and I open my mouth and speak for the people of St. James. And I do that because they are the ones who elected me to be there. And as such, I have to put their interests first and foremost. Spencer Brand will fight for the people of Charlestown. Mark Brantley will fight for the people of St. John's. Eric Evelyn will fight for the people of St. George's. But in St. Thomas's, over the years, we have seen that the people of St. Thomas's would continue to vote for their party, the NRP party, and that is their right. But indeed, you have to understand, and many may want to argue with me, and that is an argument worth engaging in. But the bottom line is, every elected official would want to put their constituency first, because their constituents are the ones who elected them. And I don't know what else I can say regarding that, other than to say, once I'm elected by my constituents, my first obligation will be to the people of St. James. By the same token, I'm sure Cleone Stapleton Simmons will say her first obligation is to the people of St. Thomas Parish. And by right, she would be in good order and good standing to say that. But if you're not around the table, if you're not there to fight for the resources that are available to your constituency, well, what will happen? Things will get done, but it will not be done in a way that you would want it done if you are at the table fighting for your people. I make the comparison sometimes, for 14 years, the Honorable Joseph Parry was in opposition from 1992 to 2006. And to his credit, as soon as he got into government in 2006, he went and did the roads up at Jessup, Barnesgut, Cotton Ground. He did the play field over at Cotton Ground, police station, basketball court. He did other things around St. Thomas's. He was around the table and he was fighting for his constituency, because he was aware of the resources that are available. As a matter of fact, he was the Minister of Finance. But put that aside, the bottom line is he was around the table. And every other constituency who have someone around the table would have gone out and fought for their constituency. In St. James, for example, since I've been the elected representative of St. James, I have ensured that the road at Shaw's Road was done, because it was an old concrete road that was there for many years. People had no desire to live on Shaw's Road. Things were not good on Shaw's Road. But since we have reconstructed that road, rental properties have been occupied. Persons are moving back. You see families holding hands walking up and down Shaw's Road. The area is clean. It's aesthetically pleasing. And of course, housing development is there in Shaw's Road. When you move on, you look at VOGN Sporting Facility. Because I was at the table, I'm at the table, VOGN Sporting Facility was completed under my watch. As a matter of fact, it was started back in 2006. And then when the government changed, the NRP came into government, the whole project was abandoned, never touched again. But we came into government, and of course, when the resources were available, we finished the field. We lighted the play field as well. We finished the pavilion, and of course, my plans are moving forward for that facility is to ensure that we can repair the basketball court, netball court, and add a tennis court. The plans are already in the works for that to be done. And so that will be the main sporting facility in St. James when it's all said and done, with all of the amenities and all of the sporting disciplines being represented there. Go up to University Heights. When we came up with this commitment in our manifesto, we said we've been losing a lot of our young people through brain drain, meaning they were leaving the island because of frustration. Many come back and they have to pay their student loans. They have to pay other commitments or pay other things that they're committed to. And we said there must be a way of keeping our young people in Nevis. So we said, as a party, we will commit to our young people in this regard. Once you've been back for 5 years or more, we will provide you with 8,000 square feet of land at $1 per square foot. $1. That's $8,000 for 8,000 square feet. And then we'll construct a house valuing just about $340,000 or thereabout. You can make changes if you so desire to, and people have made changes. But up to this point in time, about 10 or 12 persons have benefited from that. It therefore means if you're a lawyer, if you're an engineer, if you are whatever you're doing in your walk of life, whatever profession you have, you're staying here on the island. If you're a banker, whatever the case might be, you are staying here on the island and contributing to the development of the island of Nevis. I was so shocked to hear that at the throne speech in St. Kitts last Tuesday, I believe it was, that has now become a part of the policy and program of the Labour administration. We have been doing this since 2016. So it therefore means the CCM have been forward thinking in many ways in terms of introducing that program way back in 2016. And some persons up there would have been brought in on the program where we would have borrowed money from Social Security Board to build those houses, and they're paying somewhere between $1,500 to $1,600 per month. I believe $1,500 to $1,800 per month thereabout, if I'm not mistaken. So it therefore means they have a manageable mortgage. For that type of mortgage, $340,000 for 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. I believe that is a reasonable proposition to we would have put to our people. So when it's all said and done, that is a program that we introduce to the benefit of our young people, and ensuring that our young people stay here to contribute to the development of the island of Nevis. And it's in the constituency that I represent, St. James. It could have been in St. George's, it could have been in St. John's, I suppose, but we had lands up at Garner's that we sought to make available for this particular program. So I'm happy to welcome one and all. It is not just for CCM supporters, it is not just for NRP supporters, it is for Nevisians. No matter who you support or whether you don't support anyone, it is therefore Nevisians. Not only that, we move on because we have done other things in St. James. As a matter of fact, that housing development up at Madden's Cedar View Housing Development, that development was introduced in St. James and in the Madden's area to capture our young students so that they can feed into the St. James Primary School. When I became the representative of St. James, I believe the school roll was about 29 thereabout, but it was below 30. Whether 27, 28 or 29, it was very low, because you had what was taking place then is that persons were going to other schools, when in truth and in fact the zoning rules were in place, but somehow people were avoiding that and getting into other schools elsewhere. We brought about this housing development to ensure that we can keep our students, young students, in St. James, at the St. James Primary School. I am pleased to say this evening, I believe the roll is almost 50. And that is good in the sense that it is growing, and it will grow further. As more people move into the area, that school will continue to grow. And I want to commend everyone who are playing a part in ensuring that school continue to be a prominent school here on the island of Nevis. It would have been a disaster and a major disappointment to see that school close under my watch. So I always insisted that that school have to remain open. We just have to come up with the possible ways and means to keep it open by way of putting the right policies in place and ensuring that we are sticking to all of the zoning rules throughout the island of Nevis. Indeed, there are other things that we would have done. Butlers, of course, Butlers is seeing a transformation over there in terms of the road network being improved, and I want to commend Public Works for the work that they're doing there. As a matter of fact, I believe when it's all said and done, it has been said before, if someone hasn't been back in Butlers for the last 2 years or 3 years, when they come, they will marvel at the beauty of that road work and enhancement of the village. Walls, stone walls, block wall, concrete walls, curbs, drainage, everything have been enhanced and improved. And I want to once again commend the entire Public Works staff for their effort thus far. It is not completed yet, but indeed we are seeing progress, and they will be going down that road from going down the Well Road, we call it, from Cistern Part down to Well Road, down towards the Butlers Health Center shortly. So that will be done, and those surfaces will be covered so that at least we have no major washout if there is any hard or torrential rain anytime into the future. So I want to commend them for that. Not only that, we have seen the survival of the Medical University of the Americas. I believe at some point a certain gentleman who I contested elections against said he was going to mash up that university or mash up the monopoly. It is still there standing, and it's still contributing to the overall economic development of St. James. Persons continue to get rental of properties. Persons continue to rent vehicles. The eateries in the area continue to get some sale of food and food items. The gas station over there continue to get business from those who own vehicles, those who have to repair the vehicle, insure their vehicles, those who have to purchase internet service and the likes. It is a major contributor to the overall economic development of the island of Nevis, and more so to the constituency of St. James. Not only that, we have seen over the years the enhancement of various roads and improvement of various roads in St. James. But moving forward, though, I want to say to the people of St. James, the best is yet to come, because we are putting in place our development plan for the next 5 years and beyond, which will include the reconstruction of the road Westbury to Fountain over to Mount Lily down to Camps, and that would include the enhancement of some of those bridges like Fountain Gut and the likes up there in Fountain, and also the realignment of the road as well to make it easier and passable in many areas up there. And indeed, we will also see the enhancement of roads throughout the entire constituency, including those roads in Brooklyn that we have been looking at, and also additional roads down in Newcastle as well. So we have an overall development plan for St. James and the island of Nevis, and I want to touch on this before I move any further. We have bought some lands in St. James, and this is to add to the land stock of the NIA. Over the years, we have been selling lands, but of course we see the need now to ensure that we are replenishing the land stock, so that persons who are not in possession of lands at this point, or young men and young women who are leaving school and getting a new job, and they're looking for an investment, they can invest in the island of Nevis in terms of purchasing a piece of the rock. So up there in Ghana, we are buying 36 acres of lands just across from what I mentioned before, the University Heights. We are purchasing those lands at a tune of, or at a cost, of $3.6 million EC. That is up at Ghana. So those lands will be bought. A wonderful view of Booby Island, the Southeast Peninsula, the Atlantic Ocean, the Caribbean Sea. I am at the Nevis Peak. So you get a 360 degree type of a view. You see the Atlantic Ocean, Caribbean Sea, Booby Island. Sometimes on a clear day you'll see those mountains down there. I believe it's what do you call it, St. Martin, Statia, Sabre. Those small islands down up in the northeast thereabout. Yeah, so it is a spectacular view, and those lands will be made available to Nevisians. Nevisians will get a chance to purchase those lands once we were to finalize that transaction. Not only that, down at Herbert Beach, of course, those lands have been there in the possession of someone for the last almost, I would say, 40 years or more. I remember going down to those lands when I was a little boy, adorned with coconut trees and lush green. But over the years we have had the loss of some of the trees, of course, coconut trees especially, to the lethal yellowing. But the point I'm trying to make about those lands is that they were there, and there was a developer who was in the process or sought to purchase those lands to do a development. The development never happened because they never purchased the lands, and they were at it since 2005. So somewhere along the line, the owner decided he was going to move on to sell to another individual at a tune of about $3.54 million. That is an area that is visited, and also it is home to many things. It is home to all of our nationals who go there to have some form of recreation. Visitors go down there to take a swim. It is accessible to one and all, and as such we felt that the government must play a role in terms of securing those lands to ensure they remain available to all of us. Not only that, one of the most popular events that is held during Culturama, the largest event as a matter of fact, Well, some may say Juve is the largest event, but that's fine. I'm talking about where a crowd would come and mix and mingle, buy food and have a good old time. Herbert Beach Affair, that is where it's normally held on August Monday. If it is that those lands were sold to the previous person who showed interest, who had the money to buy it as well, at $3.5 million, then of course it would have been taken away from us as a people, because I would tell everyone that those lands would have been fenced up with maybe a green high fence 10 feet tall, and then we as Navisians would have never had the opportunity to go back on those lands. But the government in its wisdom sought to move forward to acquire those lands. And I did the submission on that to make sure that we can secure those lands and add it to the government land stock. And obviously we'll have to put a development plan in place to ensure that those lands are being used for the benefit of all of us as Navisians. So we acquired those lands, and it went through the acquisition process right to the point where a cost or price was affixed to those lands of 2.4 million US dollars. Remember, I said that there was a person who was interested in buying those lands, who placed the money up to purchase those lands at just about 3.5 million thereabout. So at least I can say that we got what I feel was a reasonable price on those lands. Beachfront lands, 13.9 acres of lands. And that is what you do as the representative. I mentioned representation before. That is what you do as a representative. You represent and you look out for the best interests of your constituency. You look out for the best interests of your people. And you look out for the best interests of the island on the whole. Because I drive down there from time to time, and when I go down there, I jump up on that land and say, Lord, this is ours. How we land this, okay? And that is what you do as a representative. And so I am pleased to say that tonight there are other things we'll talk about, but I just wanted to put those on the table. One last thing though I want to talk about, which is near and dear to me, and that is that water taxi facility up there at Uwali. We have heard a lot of chatter about this, about corruption, about peer costing $595,000, where the rest money gone. And I said to myself, the NRP really is out of touch, and the leadership is out of touch, because when it's all said and done, we have placed the numbers out there in the public domain. No one have anything to hide when it comes to that particular facility. It is one of the best thing that has happened to Nevis in recent years. And why I say that is because I want to throw the people of Nevis's minds back to 2007 thereabout, when the sewerage was conceptualized and when it was constructed. It was constructed, and it's local investment, of course, yes, but there have been one operator out of that facility, this sewerage, that boat that goes across to Majors Bay with cars on a daily basis, back and forth, that is. Just one operator since then until now. This is well over 10 years going into 25 years. No, sorry, let me get my maths correct. It's almost 2007, add on 5 to that. Well, call it about 15 or more years, whatever it is. But anyway, over 10 years. When it's all said and done, that cannot be good for the overall development of any island. The playing field must be level for everyone to have access to opportunities. So we said as a government, we cannot allow someone to build a water taxi facility at the bottom of Cotton Ground, and the same thing is duplicated down there, where one operator, one owner, one person making money, and one person is in control. We said it couldn't happen. We sought to bring about a level playing field for every single person on the island. I don't care who you are. If you want to get into the water taxi business, you can get into it. And as such, we have seen a number of Navisians getting involved in the water taxi business. But we'll get to that and the benefits of that to the island. But let's look at the pier. You've heard that the pier costs $595. Let me tell the people of Nevis, the pier costs $595,000 US dollars. Let's talk easy. That is $1,621,181.41. That pier you see over, that concrete pier, it has concrete slabs fused together. We got a company out of St. Martin to construct that pier. One of the things we told that company is that you're not going to come on land to connect that pier to the land. I remember the days when it was unfinished, Persons went out and take pictures and place them on the internet and say people gonna have to swim to shore. Whoever is Robinson Crusoe and all kind of stories and so forth. But I'm a patient person. I am patient because when it's all said and done, the people of Nevis must know me. I don't respond to everything. As a matter of fact, if it is idle talk, I will not get involved. If it's progressive talk, I will get involved. If it doesn't bother me, it will not bother me in terms of a reaction. So when it's all said and done, you saw all these things, yeah? But that pier, like I said, costs $1.6 million. Easy. And it is a solid pier. When you look at what we used to travel out of and into over there at Owali, and this is no knock on Owali, they provided a service there for a number of years, a wooden pier, but that would have fallen into disrepair. As a matter of fact, one afternoon I stayed there at Owali Beach and I saw a tourist, a guest who came in. She was to stay at the Nisbet plantation and she fell right down on the pier, bruised up her knees and created difficulties for the lady. She probably ended up at the hospital before she got to her hotel. That is not a welcoming sight, and that is not what we wanted for our visitors, more so our natives or nationals. We feel like we are a progressive country, a progressive island, so we want the best for our people. So we decided we have to construct a new facility. But before you construct the facility, you also need somewhere to construct it. You also have to put it in an area where it's connected to land. The government did not own any land in the area. As a matter of fact, we had to go searching. There was a property, that same property that is there, was on the market for $1.9 million US. We were able to get that property for $1,260,000 with negotiations. And I want to say that I was in the middle of those negotiations. And let me say to the people of Nevis, I don't drive a hard bargain, eh? I'm not really beating my chest on this, but when it comes to the government's money, when it comes to spending money, my personal money and also the government's money, I am very particular as to how it is spent, and I want to make sure we get the best for, as they say locally, in local parlance, the best bang for your buck. So we got that property for $1,260,000. In EC, that is $3,803,660. That is what we paid for the property. And the question I have for the NRP now, you talk about the pier. Could you have built a pier without connecting it to land? You had to buy a property. So when you talk about the $6 million EC, well, we are now at what? Over $5 million. And I will say to you that the other charges, for example, Lefco was the company that was engaged to connect the pier to land. That walkway from the stones, the revetment that was done, all the way up to the gate, that was the engineering skills of those guys at Lefco. And it turned out, when I first saw it, I was saying to myself, how are these guys going to get this thing done? Because it was a steep drop off down to the pier. And you see what we have there? A nice smooth transition from the pier all the way to the gate. Now, the revetment that was done, all those stones, remember in 2017 we had some ground swells that did some damage and remove a lot of the soil eroded there at Owali Beach. All of the sand went. We had to protect that property. We also had to fence it. We had to build a new bathroom facility. We had to do some extra work to get the property or the facility up and running. So when it's all said and done, we have spent thus far, and I'm not including yet what we're spending over there for the rehabilitation of the building. We have spent thus far $5,807,916.28. That is what we have spent over there thus far, not including the building that is being renovated now. I believe that is going to cost us somewhere around $640,000 thereabout EC dollars. That reconstruction is ongoing. That will be the facility to house a departure lounge and offices. Then we'll build some gazebos on the property in the area where that wooden building is. That's security hut, or you call it the administrative hut. We'll put some gazebos there, and then 3 units will be built on that property in order to rent to persons who want to provide services such as, some finger foods or ice cream, coffee, the likes. If anybody's leaving at 6 in the morning and need a quick cup of coffee, all those things will be provided there. So there's still some work to be done. But of course, the property is up and running, the PA is up and running, and it's providing a wonderful service between the island of Nevis and St. Kitts and back. And I want to say to you, the numbers I don't have in terms of the movements of passengers, but from all indication, it has surpassed what happens in Charlestown. People are now sophisticated. They want to get there quickly. And people are moving back and forth, and within 6 to 7 minutes, you're in St. Kitts and back and forth. So persons go over to work at the Park Hyatt. People work in Bastia. People come over to Nevis to work at the various banks here. People work at different establishments here. People move back and forth to do business. And the important thing is that, as we've said before, the operations there, the water taxis, are all owned by Nevisians. So employment is being provided. Social Security is seeing some returns from that. The NASPA is seeing some returns because, of course, docking fees are paid, departure taxes are paid, different things are being paid for there. And of course, moving forward, there are other amenities whereby monies can be made. And the place is being enhanced. And I am so pleased that this facility is playing the role that we expected it to play. In the past, you had to go to St. Kitts for an appointment. You had to leave here at 7:30 in the morning. That's when Caribbean Queen was the only boat in town. Then came other ferries such as Carib Breeze, Carib Surf, the Sea Hustler is there. So persons had other means of transport. But these days, if you have an appointment in St. Kitts at 11 o'clock, you can go down and snap your finger and at 10 o'clock and say, I need to go across, and you're gone. You don't have to leave early. As a matter of fact, if you're taking a flight out of RLB and the flight is at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, for example, you can leave here at 11:30. You can leave at 12, and you're still there in time for your flight. In the past, you had to go through Charlestown at 10 in the morning, and you waste time over there at the airport in RLB. So these days, you can stay home, do some additional chores at home, and then when you're ready, you go down and you snap your finger, you make a call in advance and say, I'm ready to go to Bass there. You know? So I'm asking now the questions to the NRP and the leadership of the NRP. What do you think the cost of the pier should have been? And to come up with the cost, I want you to bring as well the engineering behind the cost that you're going to bring. So give me the cost. I am saying that we got the pier built for $1,621,181.41. That is $595,000 US. So when you do your engineering, I believe I'm speaking to the leader of the NRP because she's the one who's talking. Because when she talk about corruption, the bottom line with corruption, you have to prove it. You have to prove it, and we have done so as a party in opposition. We proved, and we have done so in government, and I can speak tonight about many things that we uncovered, and we have proven them in court and out of court. So I want you now to bring to me, bring your engineering, the engineer behind your pier, and give me the cost and tell me it could have been built for that. Also, I want you to tell me how much you would have paid for the lands that we bought, the property that we paid. We paid just about $3,803,660. That was $1,260,000 US. So if you think you could have gotten it better at a better price, come and tell us that. But don't go out there and say that you want to know where the money gone. See the money there. See the money right there. And we can give an account of every penny that we spend in this island. Even the 400 million that you talk about, we have said it from time to time, over and over again. Lord, I'm tired now talking about it. But it seemed like stick broke off in somebody's ear, eh? Because it's either they refuse to hear or they can't hear. But we have been saying it, and as a matter of fact, the whole of Nevis is a shining beacon of that $400 million that we would have spent right here on the island of Nevis. As a matter of fact, I can say to you, when the COVID was at its height, when things were rough, no flights were coming, no tourists were coming, nothing was coming into the island. Every single civil servant, every one of them received their paycheck on time, bar none. Everyone. Pensioners got their pension. Everybody who gets a check out the treasury got their check. We made sure that we were able to keep people afloat so that they can pay their mortgages, they can pay their car note, they can send their children to school, they can buy all of the amenities that were needed by their children to go through those schools that, well, the classes that were held at home, meaning the handheld devices or whatever the case might be. Children were eating a lot. Parents needed money to buy food for their children. We also gave out vouchers. We did whatever was necessary to keep our people, keep their standard of living where it has always been. And I am proud of the leadership of the Honorable Mark Brantley. I don't care what anybody say about Mark Brantley. I know him just as good as many, maybe better than some, because I've been around him for many years. We've been together. We have gone shoulder to shoulder, head to head. We've been there together through thick, thin, and we've been through some battles as well since 2006. So I know him well. And I know that many a times I ask him, boy, how do you sleep at night? Not that you have anything negative on your mind, but how do you sleep when all of these issues and difficulties are coming to your doorsteps? But through it all, he has stood tall as a leader of this island. No other leader, none, have had to deal with a pandemic as he has done. The last pandemic, I understand, was about 1920. So none of us can speak of a pandemic of 1920 and know how to deal with it because of our experience then. We had to learn on the fly, so to speak. Learn as you go. And I want to say from this very microphone that I want to commend the Honorable Mark Brantley for his sterling leadership over the past 4 years, going on 5 years. But more so from the onset of the pandemic until now. He has sought to hold this island together, keep the ship of state afloat, so to speak. As I said before, he made sure every civil servant got their paycheck on time. We were able to service our bills, whether internally or externally. We were able to keep projects going. We were able to ensure that construction, things were done. Policies were put in place to ensure construction continued, because as construction go, that's how the island will go as well. Because every single day, once construction is booming, is on the rise, or construction is good on the island, it therefore means every single day money is going into the economy. Every day you have to go to TDC. Every day you have to go to Hosford, Island Tires. Every day you have to order concrete. Every day you have to buy some sort of building material. Every week you have to pay persons, whether it is weekly or fortnightly. Every month you have to file your returns to Social Security, pay your taxes to government. So construction is a major contributor to economic development, and we understood that. And that is why we introduce what we call this waiver on the alien land holding license, which is 10% of the cost of any property that you're going to buy. And I say property, we were not concentrating on lands. We're talking about property, house and land. And with that, I believe we did an excellent job of ensuring that those houses that were sitting down on the market for sale, in difficult times, you wouldn't find people coming to buy at that particular time. But we understood if we were to get them into a new owner's hands, then that new owner would then go and do all of the necessary renovation, because no matter what house you buy, it will not always be exactly how you want it. So you want to put it exactly how you want it. And that is why we said that if we were to get these houses off the market so that they can be in a new owner's hands, then of course there would be an added incentive for new owners to go out and do their renovations. And we've seen a lot of that. As a matter of fact, we would have foregone, yes, but in terms of the stamp duty, that is still being collected. But we would have foregone that 10%. And I will say to you tonight that over $132,614,470,000 worth of property was sold, change hand. That's the value of the properties that were sold because of this particular initiative that we would have introduced. That is significant. Yes, we would have foregone 10%, yes, but we got our stamp duty. And then, of course, you have contractors out there who are gainfully employed doing renovation of some of these properties, which were older properties, yes. And it would have been an eyesore to have these properties up and down Nevis, closed and abandoned, not being repaired, but falling into a state of disrepair. Now you're seeing people are fixing up their swimming pools, painting up their buildings, breaking down, building back. And all that translate into materials being purchased at TDC, Horsford, Island Tires, and all of the suppliers here on the island of Nevis. Of course, some would import their materials as well too. So there's business at the port. So when you look at these things that we have sought to do, it was meant to ensure that the economy of Nevis continue to move along. People get work to do. Monies continue to flow, revenue that is into the coffers of the government. Not only that, we were able to introduce a few policies that impacted construction further, whereby anyone, first-time homeowner, you benefited from what we call first-time homeowners concession on the VAT and the custom duties at the port and at the hardwares as well. So anything 400,000 or more, there's some flexibility that has been built into that as well. So persons who are ready to build, visit the Ministry of Finance. That program is still ongoing. Not only that, if you have an existing home and you want to do some repairs to your roof, you want to repair some part of your house, $30,000 or more, you get concession on the materials as well too. So there are incentives out there, and these incentives are available to all who would want to take advantage of them, who qualify. That is how you keep things afloat, and that is how you keep jobs being available here on the island of Nevis. And I don't have the figures, but I'm sure Social Security will be able to provide me with them if I call them tomorrow. What have been the numbers over the last year at least, or to this point of the year? And from what I understand, I believe the Premier would have divulged some of those numbers, is that employment continued to increase. I hear people say that is the largest, what do you call it, unemployment figure they've ever seen. I don't know about that, but I can tell you this much, that there's work available out there to everyone who wants to have a job. It may not be the job that you want to do. It may not be the area that you want to work in. But of course, it is something to start with until you can transition into something that you want to do. I would have done work in the past that I didn't want to do, but I would have done it and then transition into other work. Started as a teacher, school teacher that is. I didn't want to be there. Spent 2 years in teaching. And then I transitioned into TDC, where I managed a car rental for some years. And then I didn't want to be there. I transitioned out of Nevis, went to school and back. Came back and went to a company that I started back in 1990. And I spent some years there, and I transitioned from there. And here is where I am now as a Minister of Government. So in life, you just have to keep moving and climbing the ladder as you go, and understand that you'll have difficulties as you go along, but you just have to negotiate, maneuver those circumstances, and of course you'll be the best person when it's all said and done. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been going for a whole hour, and you know, sometimes when they give a politician a microphone, sometimes we go and we go and we go. Well, I have gone for a long time, and I just needed to get some things off my chest and speak for a little bit. But I don't know if we have anyone holding, not at this time as yet, but let me just say that it is, the lines are open to you. You can call us at 469-1616, 469-1700. Those are the numbers that you'll dial to reach us here at On The Mark. And of course, as soon as I do that, someone is with us. So, good evening, you're On The Mark.
Hello, good night.
Good night, sir.
How are you doing?
Doing just as good as you, I hope.
Okay. I just called to ask 4 simple questions.
Sure.
Okay, you can answer them in any order. The first question is, when will Nevis frontline essential workers get their honorarium? The second question is, when will Nevis frontline essential workers get risk pay for their line of duty? And question number 3 is, what is an honorable amount for the service of the frontline essential workers? And question number 4, the last question, when it comes to the hospital, was adding on to the hospital the first option, or building a new hospital would have been a better option? Thank you.
Okay, very good. Well, with respect to the honorarium, when will that be paid? I believe the Premier have made a statement in that regard. He's off island and will be back hopefully by tomorrow, all being well. So you can listen up for another release from the Premier in that regard. And of course, he has said that he is committed, and this administration is committed to the frontline workers. The bottom line is establishing who will get. The federal government have articulated who they have paid. Some persons over on St. Kitts are saying they also should have been paid, but we here on Nevis will have to establish that, and that will be divulged. Keep in mind, I believe that particular honorarium was a commitment made by the ruling party in St. Kitts during their campaign. We made a commitment to the people of Nevis, everyone, whether frontline or whomever, that we were going to pay everyone their salaries, whether they were working or not. So that commitment we made, and we kept that. The Premier has said as well further that he is committed to ensuring that those persons on the front line will receive that honorarium, so we'll have to wait until he returns. Now, in terms of risk pay, that is a debate and a discussion that has to be had, because risk pay, it doesn't apply only to government workers, but also to even persons in the private sector. So there must be some discussion, consultation on this in terms of what that can be like, who will get, who is exposed to the various risks out there, and it is certainly a discussion we can have moving forward. An honorable amount, I believe, I'm not so sure if I remember that question about an honorable amount. I believe it's an honorable amount for risk pay. Well, my answer to that remains the same. Those are things that have to be discussed, because you cannot be arbitrary about these things. It cannot be done arbitrarily. It has to be done in a way whereby consultations are held throughout the public and private sector, so that you can come up with a policy that is befitting of what is to be done. In terms of the hospital, you asked if the location, it was the first option, or somewhere else could have been another option. Of course, if you go to a new area to build a hospital, you understand you're now in the ball game of in excess of 100 million or more to build a brand new hospital, a brand new facility. What we're doing is feeding off of the existing facility, expanding on it. It would cost us far less to do that, and there was space available, and as far as I'm concerned, based on what is there currently, I believe it is adequate in terms of what we have done with that expansion. A brand new facility would require brand new approach in terms of everything being started from scratch to build something new. I want to say that that facility that we are building there, some say it is 2 times what the existing hospital is, but the good thing is that we've been able to fit all of the necessary amenities that are needed in an expanded wing, in terms of new operating room, the X-ray area for dialysis, also additional rooms for a maternity ward. I'm pushing along here because I'm not responsible for the project, but I know it is almost a duplication and more of the existing hospital. Well, it's far more, because the dialysis unit will be placed in that as well, so that we can offer that service to patients who are being dialyzed at this point. But that was the first option, and I believe in our wisdom that is what we chose, and I believe that is the best thing that we would have done at this point in time. And I will go further and say, based on what I am seeing and what I'm understanding, by next year we should have that in operation as well. Is someone else holding? Yes, let's go back to the phones. We missed that. Let's try again. Good evening, you're on the mark.
Good evening, you're on the mark.
Hello, good night.
Yes, caller, good evening. And if you have your radio on, please turn it down.
No problem with that, Mr. Jeffers.
Yes.
Yeah, man. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing just as good as you, sir.
You ain't doing as good as me. You're doing better than me, sir.
How you say that? Are you ill?
No, you know, because me know the country can move forward. Because all me hear you guys talking about the NRP. Up here, me you need a Mr. Brantley say nothing about how we can move the country forward up to today.
I believe if you were to be truthful to yourself, we have been saying it all along. We said that one. You want me to give you a list of things that we...
Maybe I wasn't listening. So tell me the game plan now. How we going to be better tomorrow?
Listen up. We've been saying all along throughout our discourse, whether locally or as we have traveled around, The Van Samer International Airport, for example, I'm gonna speak so you listen. The Van Samer International.
Wait. Before you speak. Before the election, I hear Mr. Brantley say, right? The investors then come back to build on Hanley's, right? Long time we was having this donkey cook story, right? And so tell me now, do this thing happening or happening that? You don't think about that now we got next shot in Nevis?
Caller, let's take it step by step. We're going to go all over the block. We're not going to get anywhere. You ask, what are we going to do to advance the island? And I'm ready to start now. You're listening?
No, I'm listening.
Okay. The Van Samer International Airport, we have had issues over there in terms of movement of traffic.
Tell me what's the issue.
The issue is that the runway is inadequate. So we are now seeking to extend that runway. We have come up with a game plan. We have engaged Perez Construction, the same company that would have worked with the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines to expand Argyle Airport or construct Argyle Airport. They came and they have come up with a game plan, and we have looked at it, and we will do what is called a public-private partnership in terms of expansion of the airport. We are hoping to acquire those properties north of the runway. Those are those properties down there by
below the
runway. That's right, for parking and also to put on a hangar and fuel services and so forth. We will strengthen the runway, extend it to at least 55 to 5,600 feet. New lighting and improvement to the communication, that is the tower as well. That is the phase that we'll do next year. Hopefully next year we should engage that. We'll also expand on the Long Point PF facility. I'll continue. The caller might very well just listen offline. We'll expand on the Long Point Long Point facility in terms of going further out to accommodate cruise ships over there. We also would like to go further and say perhaps it was attempted before whereby Nevis can be used as a transshipment point in terms of containers coming here and then transshipped. Well, they come in on a larger ship and then they're shipped from here further south of us. It was attempted before, but I do believe there was some difficulties with the depth and everything, so all that will be addressed. Now, what that will do in terms of the cruise facility is that we've been saying that we need to develop that as well too. We over the years have been concentrating more on stay over visitors, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 months, whatever the case might be. Persons have come for a long time and they have spent monies. In terms of that daily trip into Nevis, of course, you have taxi operators, who can benefit from that, restaurateurs and persons who have various activities that will be twinned with whatever is going to be done to engage and entertain cruise passengers. So the cruise industry is one that will develop over the next 5 years. Of course, we are also seeking to expand on our technical vocational education facility down here in Charlestown, just as we have done up in Gingerland. So that is to ensure that our young men and young women are getting the necessary certification for the skills that they have. We want to make sure that once we develop as an island, persons can present their certification and say they're certified in plumbing, electrical work, whatever area that they become certified in, whether here or abroad. So we want to give them that comparative advantage in terms of competing with other persons out there. Also, we want to develop a sixth form college, or call it a community college, whereby persons can stay right here in Nevis and get their associate degree instead of going across to St. Kitts to the CFBC, for example. We also want to develop that road network from Long Point all the way around to Indian Castle and open up those thousands of acres of land around there. People are saying that that could be the next Dubai of the Caribbean, or the next frontier to develop, where you can have housing, businesses, hotels, all the likes over there. So that is what we are seeking to do as well. Indeed, moving forward, we want to continue to build out the infrastructure here on the island of Nevis to make sure that as we develop, the infrastructure is consistent with our development. And when people come to Nevis, they can utter a wow, this is Nevis. Yes, we want to be as competitive as anyone else out there. In terms of the development down at Indian Castle, that development has been going on, or plans for that development preceded the CCM. It started under the NRP, and we have been doing all we can to ensure that that development come to fruition. And of course, nothing can be said further other than to say that COVID-19 certainly would have pushed back a lot of the plans that were on the books for down there, because of course the financiers couldn't come, the developer would have communicated with us the difficulties, and we're still working with the developer. As far as I'm concerned, it is still a project that can still happen. And indeed, Nisbet Plantation is one of those hotels that would have suffered during the pandemic. They closed. But there is a sale in the works. As far as I am concerned, there are some plans afoot for the Nisbet Plantation, and we just have to wait until the developers present their plans. They have done so by way of these, what do you call it, 3D animations and so forth. I don't like to talk ahead of the game, because most times when you start talking ahead of the game with certain investment and certain development, it doesn't happen, and it turned out to be somewhat of people question your integrity, question whether you're truthful or not. All I know is that the cabinet has approved the necessary alien and holding license for the potential buyers to proceed. So the way has been cleared for that to happen. In terms of hotels, of course, Nevis needs another hotel, but you have to also say and also understand, for another hotel to come, there must be ELF and there must be a connection to the island. And indeed, that is what we're seeking to do with the Van Sammer International Airport. Because once we're able to expand that airport, at least the same aircraft type that goes into Anguilla and Dominica, I believe is the Embraer 175 that carries about 86 passengers, will be able to land here at the Van Sammer International Airport. That comes directly out of Miami into Dominica and also into Anguilla. So we are seeking to advance to that stage. In the past, we had ELF with American Eagle. That was turboprop. Those things are no longer being flown now. At least Puerto Rico is no longer a hub as well too. So a lot of things have changed, and people have to understand, as things change, you have to tell yourself that if you're not there during those changes and you don't have what it takes, then you won't be a part of the process. And when that happened with American Eagle closing down, or American Airlines closing down Puerto Rico, that was a blow not only to Nevis but the entire Caribbean. At least I would have flown out of Puerto Rico all the way down to Barbados on American Airlines. So those used to happen in the past. These days it is a challenge all around, but we are seeking to get ourselves in the game whereby we can have the expansion of that airport, so we can accommodate not only American Eagle, that is the jet type American Eagle, but also all those private jets that normally would come and land in syndicates. We want them to come here because all of those aircraft owners want to see their toy, so to speak, when they pass the airport. Just like someone wants to see the BMW, the Mercedes Benz, whatever expensive vehicle they have in their garage, those guys want to see their expensive jets right over there at the airport as well when they drive past. So we are expanding to accommodate that. I believe we have another caller holding. Let's go back to the phones. Good evening, caller. You're on the mark.
Good evening, Mr. Jeffers.
Yes, good evening, caller.
And good evening to the listeners home and abroad. Carl Brown from Fountain and St. Kitts.
Yes.
Mr. Jeffers, all these works that is planned for the airport, the question now has to be asked, is the people of Nevis, after you all done spend, our investors spend all these millions to expand and relocate the citizens around the airport, is the people of Nevis is going to use the airport of Nevis? This is what the question should be asked, because the people of Nevis is using St. Kitts Airport instead of using the airport in Nevis, and that has caused many airlines to left Nevis because there is not enough business, and they don't like to come and say these things. They catch the boat or they catch some other form of way, come to St. Kitts, take a taxi, take a passenger bus to St. Kitts Airport and take a flight from there. When they would have planes in Nevis taking them from Nevis to some of the same islands they want to go. So why? Because for years, this question being asked in the press conference, for years he being asked all around Nevis every time they get the premier or any one of the candidates them. They get a chance to ask that question, and they always being told, you all are not doing any business in Nevis, so the airline them left.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you remember some years ago, there were some investors was to come to do some refurbishing and some work there in Nevis. And thing.
Refurbishing of what?
Remember he had a client or some clients from St. Kitts?
You mean at the airport?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, a couple of years ago.
I think I recall.
While the unity government was in, I think that was in the first term.
Yes.
That ain't come off.
Right.
Now you all are seeking to do a large project now on the airport. The question is again, Nevis people, are you going to use the airport and use the airline them in Nevis and keep the airport flowing and keep good business happening in Nevis at the airport and not catching a sea taxi or however far you all get to St. Kitts and taking a passenger bus and a taxi up to Robert Bratcher Airport and then have to catch a flight from there? That's the question you must ask them, Mr. Jeffers.
Well, that question has been asked for many years.
Yes.
But I'll tell you this much. We cannot just sit on our hands and say we are not going to do something simply because people of the current age are not using the airport. I believe their complaints have always been that the customs officers are too intrusive. They come up with all kind of reasons as to why. In St. Kitts, they're saying that they come into RLB, and when they ask where are you going, I'm going to Nevis, they tell him go. We have to have a different mindset and a reset when it comes to this. If it means that we have to look at how business is done at the airport, how things are done, then those will have to be the steps we'll have to take moving forward. But we cannot just sit and look at what is going on now and say we won't develop for the future, because I do believe there's some hope and there's a future in that airport. I believe that the mindset as it is will have to change. You have sent out an appeal, you have asked a question, and I'm sure hundreds, thousands of persons are listening, Nevisians who travel out of RLB. I always love traveling out of Van Samry. I travel out of there the weekend before, and I will travel out of there anytime that I have to travel. But if it means that I have to go to St. Kitts for whatever reason, meaning you have to go on a wide body jet, I have to go. But we want to be able to get our people to think about our local facility, think local, and when they use the facility, they are actually investing in their own and in the island. And I want people to just change their mindset moving forward. But it can happen, and I believe it will happen, because it used to be the norm where people travel out of there to Puerto Rico and beyond. And it will come back, because if we are offering service.
I remember the days when people used to go to St. Kitts Airport and take a flight over to Nevis.
Of course. But of course times have changed. But if we were to offer a jet service from Nevis to Miami, I am absolutely certain that people will use it. So we have to start to just change our mindset and provide the infrastructure for that.
Right. The other thing is, I hear the NRP making noise, lots of noise over the years, and every election, you realize the NRP bring your candidates?
Yes.
I mean, how you going to win an election? How you going to get a footing? Your candidates, them have to get a footing. They have to get a base. They have to, get the candidates them to know the constituency, know the people in the constituency, and build a foundation, and then you could go up with the structure. If you keep changing your candidates every election, federal, new candidate, local election, new candidate, you can't win. That's why they can't win nothing.
Well, I think they should pay you money to be their strategists Cal.
And the other thing, they keep asking about all these monies and all these projects. And they keep going to different radio stations and say corruption, overspending, projects stop for years and all kind of thing. And every time you all put the total out there, and you could never hear them say, well, this is the total, and they never come up with a plan or a format how they could get it done cheaper.
Yeah.
And better.
Well, I suppose that is their type of politics.
Simple little things that are killing them every election. And the other thing is, before I go, I would like your support and the rest members and candidates in need support to give a date for local elections in Nevis. I think this should be the last election that the Honorable Mark Brantley have the election date in his back pocket. There should be a set election date for the local election. I have been calling down here on several governments, and many of us have been calling for the Prime Minister to have a set election date. Nobody must get catch with their pants down.
Well, I hear you, and I suppose currently that is the leverage that you have as the leader. But it's
so I hope
also
next year when this local election come off, I hope that will be the last time that the Premier have the election date and have everybody guessing. We need a election date that we know that this day, whether it come on a Sunday or any other day, that's election day.
Yeah. Well, that will be all a part of constitutional reform. But the caller makes some points there, and I mean worthy points, I would say. As a matter of fact, do we have someone else holding? Okay. As a matter of fact, I'll say that you speak about the changing of candidates, and you know, I suppose a party would have their own strategy as to how they go about contesting elections and who they would want to run. I will tell you this much though, in opposition is one of the toughest thing to engage, or toughest time to engage in politics, because in opposition it's not easy. I was a part of that from 2006 and 2000 up to 2011. It was a challenge, but you know, if you stick with it, you generally will succeed. But I don't think the NRP have a plan in that regard. I am not going to tell them what to do and how to do what, but I will tell you this much: it is really you know, a disappointment or even embarrassing when a candidate will go to a funeral and ask who is being buried. You know, you show up at the funeral, sit down at the funeral and ask who is being buried. It tells you that that person is certainly disconnected from the community, and that is what I see happening over in my area, where you show up and ask who is being buried or who is he or she related to. It is just what it is. But that's when you come out, as they say sometimes, out of the woodwork, not having any plans for politics, but jumping at the behest of someone who push you in, for example, and find yourself in such quandary. But of course, the CCM have always maintained, for example, that we will run the same candidates for federal election and also the local election. If you are the incumbent at the local level, then you run the federal, because we do believe that there is something when it comes to stability in your party in terms of how you run or contest elections. You contest elections to win, and you have to provide the framework, the platform, and also the environment in which you must win. And that is why we have stuck to our policy and our policy as a party, whereby the person who is the incumbent at the local will run the federal, and that has worked well for us, and it will continue to work well for us going into the future. We have someone else holding. Let's go to the phones. Good evening, caller. You're on the mark.
Hi, Mr. Jeffers. Good evening. How are you?
Good evening. I'm doing well.
This is Florine Williams.
Yes, Florine.
Okay. I'm calling on behalf of the Nevis Renal Society. We have the next event coming up on Saturday the 12th, and that would be a breakfast. And it would be, the location is by the Best Buy. It's by the 10 close to Gingerland Secondary School, on the other side of Best Buy. That's in Gingerland. And it starts from 6 o'clock in the morning. price per ticket is $20 each. We
Okay.
are encouraging to the general public to please support the Renal Society in this worthy cause, and proceeds from this event will go towards assisting clients with renal failure.
Mhm.
And I would like to say thanks to everyone who already purchased tickets, and we have more tickets to sell,
Mhm.
and ticket can be purchased from any member of the society.
Okay.
Okay? And how many tickets do you like me to say for you, Mr. Jeffers?
I was waiting for that. I would have been disappointed if you go off the line and didn't ask.
Ah?
Anyway, call me off the phone.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to say 5 for you. Okay, you could give them away.
How much
That is fine?
How much that? $30?
That would be $100 per ticket.
That's okay.
Oh, no,
Okay.
that is okay.
Okay, I'll be in
I know
touch.
you always give generously.
I'll be in touch.
Okay?
Yeah.
And thank you very much. And while I'm here, I would like to say my sympathy to the Clark family. I have missed a very close friend, Verna Williams, who resigned in England,
Mhm.
who passed away probably like a week ago.
Oh yes.
She was really a darling to me,
Mhm.
and I'm going to miss her. And I'm telling the Clark family and the
Mhm.
families and friends to please hold on.
Mhm.
God is in control.
Yeah.
Okay,
That is Mrs. Clark from up there at Brazier's.
Outrageous, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, I
Yeah.
know.
We
Well,
started working Four Seasons
Four
when Four
Seasons.
Seasons just opened when she came
Yeah.
from England,
Remember.
and we always hold that good relationship.
I remember. Okay,
Yes,
God
we
bless her
can.
soul. May her rest in peace. And well, of course, I'd also like to express my sympathies as well. I did hear of her passing, but
Yeah.
I would have forgotten. Of course, yeah, she is a member of the Clark
hopefully
family.
her
That's
body will be
right.
coming down anyway.
Oh, she'll be buried here.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you very much, and have a pleasant evening. It's always a pleasure seeing you.
Yes, my dear, and all the best. You have a good night.
Thank
huh?
you too. Bye.
Thank you. Let's go back to the phones. Oh, no one is holding. Okay, so that event, and someone is calling now. But anyway, the advertisement have gone out, and it will be replayed, so persons can patronize accordingly. Let's go to the phones. Good evening, caller. You're on the mark.
Yeah, good evening. There was some talk of a diversion of the second phase of the Island Main Road from around the end of Catalan Pass.
Mm-hmm.
But if you divert to accommodate the expansion to the airport, where would you exit?
Well, that phase will not be done immediately, but the thinking is in the future that, of course, as you expand the airport further, all of those lands that are west of, that tire place over there, I forgot its name, but it used to be Tire World. All of those lands west of those, that Tire World, those would eventually become part of the airport perimeter of property, sorry. And then, of course, where the Yarwood's mother, the parents, used to own or still own that property. Somewhere in that region, the road will come, divert, and come and reconnect just above the airport parking lot in those areas.
But then you'll have to acquire land because I think
Of course, they're private lands, but
private land and occupied by houses and so on.
Well, those lands west of the Tire World or the Tire Place, there are no houses down there. All those lands are still vacant land. There's some rental units that is, call it south of the Tire Place.
Mm-hmm.
The road will come to the back of those or the mountainside of those.
But
So-
you're not. Well, I'm not seeing it in my mind's eye exactly how it's going to be configured. But I'm thinking that if you divert and the two and come off by Tire World and then come out again, you're not thinking that you're going to come out.
No. You're not coming back in front of Tire Wall. Anything is at the back of it, the back of those properties.
Yeah, but when you re-enter the old main road, you wouldn't come via an intersection or a stop sign because you have to go straight. When you're driving on the main road, you have to continue straight without coming out of the intersection.
Well, I don't know if there's any intersection that will be there, but there's a reconnection that could be made to the Island Main Road in the vicinity of those two properties up above the airport there, and then connect back to the Island Main Road. There could be a transition. We have looked at it, and it is a future plan. It will be difficult to start talking about it in its entirety now, but at least that is why we are going to stop the road rehabilitation at Mount Nevis, the entrance to Mount Nevis, and then jump over that section and pick it up again from Shaw's Road, the bottom of Shaw's Road, because you don't want to invest millions inside there when in truth and in fact at some point in the future you'll have to go and do road realignment or tear up or whatever the case might be. So that is how we'll do it. But there's a transition that can be made back to the Island Main Road. Anything you do in the future would require acquisition, purchase of lands or properties. And that is how development is looked at.
And the thinking is that the project should start this month.
Or the rehabilitation of the Island Main Road? As a matter of fact, Surrey Paving has done a significant amount of mobilization. The thinking is by next week, I would hope to see some road work being done, because it should be advanced enough by the time December comes around that there is significant work that will be done between where the road ended there at Cliff Dwellers to at least the Wally Water Taxi facility. That section that we wanted at an advanced stage. So when people come in for Christmas and so forth, they can, drive on something good.
All right, thank you. All right.
Yeah? Okay, thank you, caller. We have someone else holding? Okay, so no one else is holding. So, yeah, persons have been, or someone is there. I just need to be patient, I suppose. Let's go back to the phones. Good evening, caller. You're on the mark.
Good night, Minister Jeffers.
Good night, caller.
From your preview, it is good to learn of the housing development that your government has been doing to enhance the lives of our citizens. And may God continue to give you and your colleagues the wisdom to assist persons in this aspect. I would also like to commend your foresight on the advancement of the airport, because this would attract more investors and visitors to the island.
Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you, caller.
Okay.
We appreciate it very much. Thank you. And,
okay, you're welcome.
And those are the type of infrastructural development we'll have to do going into the future if we were to transform the island of Nevis. At least it takes money for everything, and indeed we know how difficult it is to access resources. But in terms of the plans are there, and we will move forward. I said before that we will engage private persons, so it will be a public-private arrangement, so to speak, moving forward. And that's how things are done throughout the world. Governments of the day, generally speaking, have limited resources, and there must be creative ways for us to always find a way to move forward to get developments done. Of course, there is a way, and we'll certainly find a way. But that airport is essential and important to the overall development of the island of Nevis. I wish for the day, and I hope I'm a minister of government at some point, when I see an aircraft land at Van Summer International Airport coming from the United States, Miami for example, with passengers for Four Seasons, for other hotels here, and also for all local nationals or nationals who would want to travel in and out of the island of Nevis. We have to start thinking and behaving as patriotic as we can, and tell ourselves that whatever we do can impact the future of the island of Nevis. As a matter of fact, there is a saying, our actions are our future. Whatever we do now can determine what our future becomes. If we are positive in our thinking, positive in our action, we certainly will have a positive future. But if we are negative, then it will mean doom and gloom for the island of Nevis. I have said before that we want to leave Nevis better than we met it. And when I say that, I mean that. And every single one of us who sit around the cabinet table, our thinking and our plans and programs are always geared towards making sure that we are leaving Nevis. When it's all said and done, we are leaving Nevis better than we met it. I spoke about challenges before. I don't want to go back into all that. But of course, one of the challenges that we would have had is water. For example, so while I'm waiting on another call, let me just go into some other things. One of the challenges we had in this island was water. And why I say challenge is because, of course, prior to 2006, yes, there were challenges with water. Up to the point when we got back into government, there were challenges with water. We undertook a water enhancement project, $30 million project to improve the water delivery here on the island of Nevis, putting new lines from all the way up there at Madden's, wrap around up into Fountain, Spring Hill, down into Four Seasons. We placed new tanks at Spring Hill, Camps, Madden's, up there at Burden Pasture, up in Rollins, Stony Hill, new tanks, new reservoirs to hold water. As a matter of fact, these have transformed the water storage situation here on the island of Nevis. There were some panel tanks that were being used before, and more water was coming out than what was being stored. So white tanks. We just removed the last one up there at Zetlands, and a new tank would be placed there as well too. We want to make sure that even though we are facing difficulties with climatic changes, or climate change, sorry, even though we are facing challenges where you have drought situation, difficulties with rainfall, we are seeking to ensure that we are able to provide potable water to our people, and that is why we continue to seek ways and means to find new water. There have been some talk about desalination. That is under review, but I believe here on the island of Nevis there are areas such as down there at Maynard's ground. I understand there may be the possibilities of a good water table down there, so we're seeking to do some drilling shortly. But of course you must have the storage, and you must have the capability and the ability to deliver the water, and I think we have done an excellent job. Prior to us coming into government as well, we have always talked about this arrangement with BEAD. I remember BEAD has always been the talk. BEAD. Now, we were paying BEAD, I believe, somewhere around 55,500 US dollars per month. That's a lot of money. That's about 149,000, call it 150,000 EC dollars a month for water. Meaning they were pumping our water into our tanks at that price. And we said no. Once that contract was over, we went ahead and we took back the control and the distribution of our own water. So we've been able to save the government $150,000 a month, which we were paying to BEAD. So that money now can go back into ensuring that we're providing the upgrade, the improvement that is needed in water delivery. And just to give a good idea as to what we would have paid to BEAD over a 10-year period, because they had a 10-year contract, 17,000, my apologies, let's back up, 17 million. Where I get 1,000 from? $17 million we paid to BEAD over a 10-year period. That's a lot of money. You could understand what we could have done with $17 million that we paid over a 10-year period. Not only that, that arrangement was so lopsided, we paid for electricity and all. The people of Nevis paid for electricity for those pumps that BEAD had. And I believe when I left as the minister responsible for electricity, those pumps had accumulated, I believe, somewhere around $8 million worth of electricity usage that never got paid, will never be paid, because the government of the day, prior to CCM, would have undertaken the purchase, the payment of electricity. And I believe when the contract ended somewhere in 2018, those BEAD pumps would have accumulated somewhere around almost $12 million worth of electricity usage. And the people of Nevis are the ones who are stuck with that. And that is what we had to deal with. So those monies, when we talk about monies and accountability, where the money gone, those are some serious monies that would have gone to a company who came in here or formed here on the island of Nevis. They came and they were to drill some wells, find the water, and in my opinion what should have been done is hand over those wells and the government pay and we move on. But instead they got this contract for 10 years and collected over $17 million for the 10 years, over those 10 years. And on top of that, like I said, it's worth repeating, the people of Nevis would have had to pay the electricity for those pumps, those BEAD pumps. And when the contract ended, those pumps would have accumulated over $12 million worth of electricity usage. never to be paid. So when you understand the difficulties that we have at NEVLEC, when you understand the difficulties with finances at NEVLEC, you understand all of those monies. That decision that was made in 2009 thereabout to throw the cost of the electricity on the backs of the people of Nevis, because when you throw it at NEVLEC, it's the people of Nevis got to pay it, and we were the ones who had to pay that. So you look at 17 million collected, and then you look at this outstanding amount of $12 million. So you add the two together, and the Nevis was no better off. No better off, because that's almost $30 million between paying for water and paying for electricity, and the people of Nevis had to do that. $30 million. That's a lot of money. And you ask for accountability, you ask about corruption, you ask about money. Look the money there. Look the corruption there. When we speak from a platform of facts. I'm not coming here to tell a lie about anything. I was called a liar up in New York by an NRP supporter, and I said to that person, when I'm done speaking, you stand up and tell the truth. But in the meantime, sit down and have some manners and listen. And it was regarding geothermal. I don't want to get into a debate about geothermal tonight, but part of the process in terms of an election and also about the development of an island, you have to look back to look forward. We are moving forward with the development of geothermal. It is not a discussion tonight, but the reason why I brought this up is because I was called a liar, and for anybody to call me a liar, that is a stretch, a huge stretch to call me a liar, because I have not been pointed out one time on any radio station or anywhere to be a liar anywhere. One thing I can say, I speak the truth and nothing but the truth. So I was making the point about geothermal, because the lady stood up, sat in her seat and said, you all have politicized geothermal. I don't know about that. All I know is that we've always wanted geothermal to come to fruition, because we understand the benefits that can be derived from geothermal. But I believe at some point or the other, the Honorable Mark Branty would have said, oh, you're all developing geothermal. The Honorable Van Sammer will flick the switch, and that seems as they flicked something in their head. Because lo and behold, 2012, and this is the truth, the NRP took the same developer that they were in bed with, West Indies Power, took them to court. And why they went to court? They told the court that West Indies Power is unable to meet its financial obligation, meaning it pays bills. So they wanted to be taken out of that contract, or they wanted that contract to be rescinded. The court agreed. The court in the first instance agreed. So West Indies Power appealed that judgment. Went to the Court of Appeal in March of 2013. I was in St. Kitts at the Court of Appeals. And I remember the same guy, what's his name, Kerry McDonald, came over to me and say, Minister, can we go outside and have a discussion regarding this case? I said, boy, look, the three judges are already sitting down up there. What am I going to say to you? They're there to adjudicate. And they lost the case, and that was the end of that. But not only that, talking about politicizing geothermal, I sure the whole of Nevis remember, Juve Mani was held down in Charlestown on a Friday afternoon. I thought Juve Mani was on August Monday, but Juve Mani was down in Charlestown. You hear music, it's just balloons, pom-pom girls, t-shirt, pickup, all kind of things were down there making noise. Bugle horns, noise down there, celebrating the arrival of geothermal. And we made the point, listen, you are christening a baby before he born, because nowhere on the horizon you had seen geothermal then. And we were right, because shortly after, they terminated the contract with West Indies Power. Not only that, the former Premier Parry would have said that he asked the federal government for a guarantee of $75 million to meet the requirement of OPIC, that overseas investment, overseas financial arm of the U.S. government. OPIC, I think it's called. I forget what the acronym stands for. But they wanted that guarantee from the federal government. But Joseph Parry at the time said that the Prime Minister of the day wanted something that he couldn't provide. So that what you call it, guarantee never came. But these are facts. These are things that we live through. These are things that are there. You see, some people want to recall history the way they want it read. But history have been made. History have already been documented. And you can't change history. You can't change the past. It is there. And all these things were being done, and I was merely pointing out these things in New York when they're saying that we are politicizing geothermal. I stay away from geothermal in many ways. I want to see geothermal come to fruition if it is to come. And that's all that I'm interested in. In terms of the benefits that can be derived, I am interested in that for our people. There's no need to talk about geothermal every day. There's no need to put any hype behind geothermal. I went to a couple of renewable energy conferences. One in Aruba in 2013, made a presentation. The one in Miami, I believe, in 2014. That is the Caribbean Renewable Energy Forum or something like that it was called. I can recall the minister responsible for communications, work and energy in Dominica did a presentation in Miami. And he made a bold proclamation. I'm not going to call his name, but he made the bold proclamation then in 2014 that by next year, 2015, Dominica will have geothermal energy flowing in Dominica and lighted up houses and whatever down there. When he came off of the stage, I pulled him aside and said, I call him by his name, Honorable. If I were you, I wouldn't have done that. But you already done it, because that is really going beyond the pale in my opinion. I believe that anything to do with geothermal, renewable energy, it is worth working towards it and making it happen before you start talking too much. And that is what we have done as a government and as a party in government, is to be as circumspect as we can, but ensure that we can get there using all of the necessary tools and resources available to us. Right now we're engaged in the Caribbean Development Bank, and that's where we are. And we know when it comes to the Caribbean Development Bank, it doesn't happen overnight. There are steps you have to take. There are due diligence that has to be done. There are things that you have to do before you get to the next level. So that is where we are. You won't hear me talk about geothermal every night, but I had to put in this little thing about geothermal because the young lady, not so young anyway, but she know who she is, got up and point out that I was lying. Lying? The truth is right there hitting all of us in our face. But the truth also have fire to its tail. Do you have someone else holding? Okay, no one else is holding. So geothermal will be pursued by us as a government. It can transform the island of Nevis, of course, once it was to come to fruition. But until then, we continue to do what is necessary to ensure that the power supply here on Nevis continue to be stable. As a matter of fact, we've invested heavily as a government in Nevlec, heavily. I believe we would have bought to date from 2013 until now, I believe at least 4 generators. 2 which we consider to be those larger generators, Wattzillas, 3.8 megawatts, and some smaller containerized generators to maintain the stability of electricity. Let's go to the phones and take this call. Good evening, caller, you're on the mark.
Hey, Good
evening, caller, you're on the mark.
Good evening. Alexis, how are you doing?
I'm doing just as good as you, sir.
Great. I'm to the left to the On the Mark program.
Yes. You said, I didn't hear what, you said on the mark? What? Repeat what you said, caller?
I just have a question.
Yes, okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm trying to find out, how much the airport was paid for the lands at the airport that they said that they claimed that they never received the payment from the government. How much? Was it 400 million?
No, 4 million, easy.
Oh, 4 million.
That was borrowed from the SIDF.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
4 million, easy. Yes, well, as far as I know, if they claim they never got it, those monies were sent to the Craft House and other accounts to get to them. But we leave it as that because, you see, we have always made the point as a party that all that NRP would have gotten out of their relationship with the Labour Party back then when they held the balance of power was a loan for $4 million. We have gotten upwards of $400 million, which is just 7% of what we should have gotten. 7% of the 25% that we should have gotten. And we have used those monies for the overall development of Nevis. Now, they have always chided the CCM for whatever reason. I would say to the NRP though, how much did you get when you were there as a partner in the federal government? You got $4 million loan That is not anything of consequence to the people of Nevis. We needed monies that we can use to develop Nevis. So you didn't bring anything. We brought $400 million, but we've been chided for that. It doesn't make any sense in my opinion. But I ain't going to go over those 400 million because we understood what was happening. The politics of the day was to give NRP some talking points. They gave them some talking points about the 400 million. They gave them some talking points about, what's his name, Minister Brand and his project prior to getting into government. All of those were talk. Everything that was given to the NRP was for them to use those as talking points for an election. The NRP don't have a thing to campaign on. Just noise, 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 pure noise. Empty barrels making a ton load of noise. And then their partner over on St. Kitts would have given them, that is the failed Prime Minister who is no longer there, gave them these talking points and they ran with them. And everywhere they go, they put up billboard and all, 400 million. Almost akin to what happened with the 80 acres. Put up billboard. That's the NRP for you. Put up billboards, mislead, and then when it's done, they say, oh, that don't do work. But the 400 million didn't do the work for them. And moving forward, it better if they stop talking about 400 million and come up with something else. Because as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to get the language right and speak proper English because sometimes you can get carried away. But as far as I'm concerned, the $400 million, he ain't doing no work. He won't do any work for them. So they need to come up with something new. As a matter of fact, maybe at the end of this election, they'll have to come up with a new party. As I will say to you, that I believe they've always tried to have a new party, reinvent themselves, because they were NRP, then the new NRP, then the new NRP, then the revamp NRP, and I believe whenever they come again, they're going to take NRP off of it and come with a different name. Because when it's all said and done, the NRP have never, ever accepted the fact that they would have done an injustice to the people of Nevis. The same people that walk and pass every morning, they did an injustice to them. Take them name off the voters list. You ain't exist. You're dead. All kind of reasons and rationale they use to destroy people's lives. Because when people have that sacred right to vote, that democratic right, and you take that from them, you're destroying them. You're destroying their ability to make a decision and be a part of the decision-making process. And until the NRP can wrap their head around that and understand that you did a huge injustice to over 200 people in this island, until you can wrap your head around that and understand what you did then was immoral, inhumane, and a tragedy here on the island of Nevis, you would never get any further in politics. Because people haven't forgotten. I haven't forgotten. The people who were taken to court didn't, they haven't forgotten. Those who were taken off haven't forgotten. So if this current crop of politicians they have in NRP have forgotten, I say woe be unto you, because the people of Nevis have not forgotten, and they remember you good. They remember you good. And they remember you so good that they will never forget, if I would put it that way. But that was an injustice. And you talk about corruption. Well, we said corruption existed at the electoral office then, and we proved it in court. We proved it in court. That's the difference with CCM, you know. We don't just talk. We give you talk that get results by going to the court. I've gone to court many times as a minister of government. Lord, there was a lawyer, an NRP lawyer, who had me on the stands for about 3 hours one day. And then I went back again. He had me on for another 3 hours till he showed up his hand to the judge and said, you know, your lordship, I give up because I'm not getting anywhere. You ain't gonna get nowhere, because the one thing I don't do is tell lie in court. So if you come in there to ask me a question, I answer you accordingly. And we have won cases too, you know, not because you don't hear me come to Von Radio to talk about them. That last case there with respect to those lands over at Hobart Beach and Ocean Reef, that was a case that I took forward and said, let's go. We have to appeal this, and we won the appeal. And I don't care what the conversation is regarding who can sue and who can't sue. That will be worked out by the necessary legal framework that has to be dealt with regarding that. But I'll tell you this much. From since 1983 until now, we have not had not even a comma nor a dot nor nothing changed in the Constitution. So the people of Nevis must understand that Nevis still have every right under the Constitution that they had in 1983. As a matter of fact, you have had changes in leadership. The Prime Minister has changed. Dr. Simmons, Dr. Douglas, Dr. what's his name, Dr. Harris. You now have a new prime minister. You have changes in the leadership at the local level. Dr. Daniel, the Honorable Van Samry, Joseph Parry. Now you have Dr. Brantley. You have leadership changes. One thing haven't changed. One thing haven't changed is the authority that the NIA has in the Constitution. And I don't care who argue with me tonight or tomorrow morning. The bottom line is there has not been any changes. I got up the day after the judgment, went to my office. You think I'm less of a minister? You think anybody inside of any office in Nevis think that they're less of a person because of that judgment? No. But whoever want to spin it and twist it and turn it and take it further than where they want to go with it. I am saying from my personal standpoint, not a thing has changed with the authority of the NIA. If, for example, you have to enjoin the Attorney General on any case, so be it. It has to be done. There are cases you have to go to the Attorney General and enjoin them to the case. As a matter of fact, that same particular case, that was never heard. It was never heard, and the Attorney General was affixed to that case. He was affixed. Oh, the Attorney General was affixed to it. But it was never heard because of the serving of that particular claim. They served it and the cleaner down there, the legal department. That was the challenge. The judge at the point in time didn't want to hear that. But of course you got to the Court of Appeal and the matter was set right. And the people of Nevis can tell themselves tonight they don't have US $79 million to pay to anybody. To a company that wasn't even on the books. A company that was just re-established on the books. The company is registered in March of this year. But there are stories about that we can get into, but I don't even have time tonight for that. But I will say this tonight, that every ounce in my body I would use it, every ounce of energy to fight to protect the Nevis Island administration and what resources we have as a government and as a people. And that's how you should operate as a government and as elected officials. And I'm so proud that when I selected lawyers to deal with these matters pertaining to NHLDC, we have won cases too. Millions of dollars will be sought, and we won an appeal. And I'm not going to go into any details, but who want to search the court record can go and search it, because these are public records for you to go and search. We must always be a reading island where we pick up things and read and see exactly what is happening in our courts, see what is happening in the various institutions here on the island of Nevis, because we live here and we should understand and acknowledge what is going on here and be a part of what is going on here. Ladies and gentlemen, it's just about 3 minutes to the 10 o'clock hour, and of course we've got 2 hours. Some may say I talk a lot, but Lord, maybe it's because I haven't been here for a while, so I have to talk. But then again, some persons would have called in, and we certainly appreciate that as well too. This show is structured in this way so that we can talk, and we can talk to you, and we can talk to the general public. Well, talk to you as a caller and talk to the general public. And of course, it was indeed my pleasure being here this evening. It is just about 2 minutes to, so if anyone wants to get it before we leave here, it is 469-1616, 469-1700, and we certainly will be willing to entertain you. I believe we do have what you call now Parliament on Friday. That will be the second sitting. Oh no, that's the third sitting of Parliament for this particular term, and that's on Friday on St. Kitts. So I haven't seen the bills as yet that are to be debated, but of course the order paper and the bills will come shortly, I'm sure. So that is something to look forward to on Friday. Do we have any caller before we go? Yes, we have a caller. We'll entertain this caller quickly. Caller, good evening. You have just about a minute. Good evening, caller. You're on the mark.
Hello, good evening, Alexis.
Yeah, quick one.
Violet is here.
Yes.
Do you feel like $100 could support any kind of child?
Boy, in this day and age, it's hard to stretch that.
Okay. So when you go to the Parliament, $100 not good enough, and 75, it gotta go up.
I hear you. Well, that's up for consideration. I hear you clearly. But in this day and age where things are expensive, but then again, even if a court mandate that you pay $100, Lord man, people should pay more. Don't you think? Or the caller is gone. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I believe we're almost out of time this evening. It's just about a few seconds before 10 o'clock. So I want to say thanks to everyone who would have joined us this evening, who have been a part of the show, whether by calling or whether by listening. We certainly appreciate you spending your precious time with us this evening for 2 hours. That's a long time, and it is always a pleasure having you in our company, because without you there is no show. At least we can have a show, but it will not be the same if we're just here talking to ourselves. So it was indeed my pleasure having you, and it was indeed my pleasure being here with you. Keep in mind that this show is rebroadcast tomorrow at 1 p.m. right here on the Caribbean's only powerhouse, where only the best will do, 8:60 a.m. So join us then for a repeat of this broadcast. Join us again next week, same time, 8 p.m. With the Honorable Mark Brantley. Oh no, I will say that we probably won't be here. God's willing, someone else will be here, because we go off to Taiwan on Saturday for an official state visit as a part of the delegation of the Prime Minister of St. Kitts Nevis, the Honorable Dr. Terence Drew. So we both, Mark Brantley and I, won't be here next week, but someone will be here. But the show will go on anyway, because I came in this evening at last notice, because the premiere is not an island. So it will go on. I want to thank you very much for joining me. Have yourself a wonderful night's rest, and see you back again next week, God's willing. Good night.
The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Nevis Broadcasting Company Limited or its advertisers.